Maybe we could start off, like, make the intro just a cheesy intro to a D&D thing. Not you start in a tavern or you wake up in a prison, but something interesting.
What, you mean like the actual intro to the podcast?
Yeah.
Here, I'll do something then. You awaken to find yourself surrounded with a cavalcade of people. You see the onlooking eyes, the staring faces, and everyone gazing down at you. You don't know how you got here. You awaken silently in a crowd surrounded by a town. And as you come to stand, you see across from you a certain group of people sat down at a table, discussing things and the very words that you hear at this moment. Hello, I am Matthew, and I will be your host this evening. And with me I have my good dear friend. Please introduce yourself, Marcy.
Hello, I'm Marcy. I am, well, yeah, I'd say dear friend. Yeah, that works. DM also.
Yes, we are
Our
both.
good Matthew here.
Yes, we are both DMs. We are both players, and this is a D&D podcast. The first episode. I hope you enjoyed that little intro. I made it up as I went. About 3 seconds before I started talking, you were going to be in a tavern, and then you won.
Oh, dear goodness. Yeah, so
Uh,
that kind of leads us a good segue into what our topic that we're going to be covering today is, doesn't it?
yes. So the thing, this podcast is sort of going to serve as like a little bit of a not a how-to guide, but a maybe if you want some tips guide for young DMs, old DMs alike. So I figured, okay, so the two most common questions I get asked as a DM are, how do you make a good villain, and what's a good plot hook? And we're gonna go with the second one now, because that's a much easier, much simpler answer.
Yeah. Villains have a lot of intricacies that we're not going to get into for just a while.
Yeah, villains are they're very much case by case, especially based on what sort of campaign you want to have, what sort of villain you are. In the meantime,
That's getting sidetracked.
Yes, in the meantime, if you do want to find stuff on good villains, I would recommend watching the excellent Types of Villains video from Extra Credits. It's an excellent video. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's homework for next episode then.
I want that on my desk by noon. Yes, so the thing with making plot hooks is, in my experience at least, you don't generally need like a truly great plot hook unless you want to make like a truly thrilling, gripping story, in which case you just need to know how to write. You just need to know how to write a good story, and then players will follow. Because that's the thing. Your players have made the effort of making a character, giving the character a reason to go on an adventure. They have made the effort to sit at your table. Your players want to play. They want to go with your plot. But that doesn't mean be lazy. Give them a bone. Like, that's just my experience, of course.
Yeah, obviously, every player wants to follow whatever the DM might have prepared. That's just in the nature of the game. There's obviously gonna be one of those guys, DM, once in a while, that just works against everything the plot stands for. But 99 times out of 100, you're gonna get yourself a player that actively wants to follow the story.
Like, I don't know if you've ever actually watched Community, Marcy.
I've not yet, no.
There are two.
They did some D&D episodes.
They did 2 D&D episodes. Both times the sort of community group there, they have one really advanced, really experienced D&D player. The first one is to sort of cheer a guy up so that he doesn't kill himself. And the other one is to try and bring a teacher who works at their school and his son closer together through very ham-fisted ways, because none of them know how to tell a story, obviously. The one who they have as a DM is someone who understands a lot of television tropes, all that. And the thing that you'll tend to find is, in that second episode, the really experienced player, he's presented with a plot. He's told, you're standing at the edge of a bridge. Across from you is a castle where an evil lich is residing. It is your duty to go and kill the lich. And this experienced player immediately says, that's boring. I'm going to go this way.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a bad player.
Don't be such a player.
Yeah, like that play. If you ever want an example of how to really piss off everyone in your D&D group, model yourself after that guy. Because in addition to that, everyone had pre-made characters, and he just goes around, takes everyone's character sheets, and then just hands them out randomly. He's not the DM. That's not his job. But he decides he's not happy with his character, so nobody can have theirs.
Wow. Yeah. We'll cover bad players another time.
But the point is, every other player there, who is inexperienced with D&D, agrees to go with the plot. They're just derailed by one arsehole. And that's generally how bad D&D sessions go. One arsehole will ruin it for everyone.
Or poor DM might.
Yes. Who could be that arsehole? We don't know. But, like, the generic... Moving back to actual plot hooks, the generic sort of plot hooks are like, you arrive at a tavern, and then every player sighs. Or, you awake to find yourself in a prison, and every player sighs.
Yeah. Generally, you can... Okay, first and foremost, these are not necessarily bad tropes. They are a trope for a reason. Of course, a tavern is a very good hotspot for adventurers to meet up. It just makes sense to start off there. However, it feels lacking in originality after you've basically had it once. Because it always starts the same. You enter the tavern, you talk to the tavern keeper, he gives you a mission or a quest, or something storms into the tavern in order to distract you from whatever you're doing, and the plot boulders off from there. However, I'm not gonna tell you not to use the tavern starter, but do try to use it sparingly.
Like,
use
you
it
can
in
even...
case of a flash session or something.
Yeah, like, you can even do, like, weird, interesting things with the tavern. Like, one idea that I've been playing with a little bit is, what if you start in a tavern, but then the entire campaign is just in that tavern? You're trying to... There's some kind of occult mystery involving this tavern, and you are set to find out what that is.
Ooh, so there's like a crypt underneath the tavern with the lich or some bullshit like that.
Yeah. Or maybe it's like, it's a refuge for monsters that are disguising themselves to try and live peaceful lives among civilization. Some shit like that. Like, you can play around with any trope that exists, but understand it is still based in the trope. Not a bad thing, just based in the trope.
It's a bit tiring at times, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's mostly one of the things I wanted to cover about the generic plot hooks TM.
Yeah, I've only ever done start in a prison once. And even then, you start in a prison not because you had done something wrong or your players were evil, but because you had been sentenced by the king to trial by combat. And the entire campaign was just gladiatorial combat. That's all it was.
Yeah.
That lasted for one session, because I wanted to figure out stuff about being a DM at that point.
Yeah, it was actually kind of fun, honestly. Like, we were at one point subjected to the start in a prison intro.
Yes.
That one didn't go so particularly well for our dear friend Matthew.
No.
Story for another time. We'll make an episode about anecdotes at one point.
I mean, that's something I love about D&D, that if you've been playing D&D for so much as a couple of hours, then you've got a story to tell.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that story was poorly prepared, poorly executed, and everything just kind of sucked, honestly.
Yes. We were told that we would be playing D&D that night, I think 3 hours before we started, and and by the time I got home it was 1 hour before we started, and I had to make a class that I had never made before. Fun! That was Monk, by the way. Didn't go well. But again, story for another time. We'll have a story time episode, don't worry.
Oh.
YouTube is story time!
Oh boy. No, just no. Oh dear. So yeah, there are a lot of interesting plot hooks that you can try and do. There's a few ones that can work incredibly in your favor, especially the plot hook of starting, what was it called again? There's a special Latin term, I forgot to write it down, but basically in the middle of some bullshit, aka you are in a town that's currently being besieged. Literally, just 5 minutes earlier, a ballista crashed down the walls. That sort of thing. Those sorts of starters immediately put your characters into action because shit's going down. You need to react and act and see what you can do around to help. Either yourself or others, of course, depending on what sort of group you play.
Yeah, like, it also depends, do you want your campaign to be more subdued, in which case, See, I had someone approach me recently who was like, how do I make a good plot hook? How do I make a good villain? It's like, well, what's your story about? Like, oh, it's about the political situation following this character. Okay, then, make it about that. Like,
yeah.
Your players have agreed to play with you, they've agreed to play with these characters, they'll probably be down for it. Like, most players don't mind if you make a subdued talking first session. As long as you throw them a bone and are like, oh, some bandit idiot is trying to mug you. Show him why he's an idiot. Like,
yeah, that sort of shit. That works pretty well. But yeah, don't be afraid to have your plot hook be quote-unquote boring or slow.
Yeah.
It can prove to build up the plot very nicely. For example, hey, you get approached in a town square by a man dressed in fancy robes. He has a proposition for you, and turns out he's the prince of a neighboring kingdom that's been kind of getting fucked over by guerrilla warfare. That sort of nonsense.
I mean, like, even look at, say, the existing D&D modules from Wizards of the Coast. If you look at the Curse of Strahd, the existing plot hook for that is, you're in a forest, things get foggy, you lose your way, now you're in this town. And then it's like, okay, so what do? We're gonna go to the tavern. Alright. In the tavern there's people, they're under the influence of Strahd. Oh, okay. Where do we go now? Let's go to the church, try and learn things about Strahd. There's a vampire under there. Like, it's all really simple shit, but it's fine because you just have to have the flexibility and knowledge of where you want the story to go. Everything that you do in the beginning of Curse of Strahd relates back to Strahd. It all comes back to Strahd. Like,
just as the Horde of the Dragon Queen starts you off, you approach Greenest. It's fucking burning and people are getting murdered. Do something about it. Everything ties directly back to dragons. Dragons this, dragons that, cultists. It's honestly, that one took way longer than it had to, yeah.
I mean, like, there's something of a D&D stereotype where you make a campaign based entirely on the villains you want your players to fight. Which is fine. It honestly is.
It's an option.
But, fuck, I forgot to turn that off. That's my phone! I forgot to turn my phone on to silent.
We are professional podcasters.
No, we're not. I'm putting it under my bed. So, what was I saying? Oh, yes. The sort of stereotype of it is that you name that campaign Rise of the insert evil enemy here. It's like, rise of the orcs, rise of the drow, rise of the dragons, rise of the flumps. It makes no difference.
Rise of the flumps.
I mean, that would be a peaceful uprising, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Flumps are lovely, by the way. If you ever
The
want to
whole
fuck with
point.
your players, throw flumps at them. It's... You know what? I want that. I want a campaign where you've got a mascot character who's telling you the things you need to do, and it's a flump, and they're telling you to go and fight mind players because they want to do evil things.
Oh boy,
Like,
that could be an interesting one. Don't do this with a low level party, please.
Kill them.
Just kill them all. Mind Flayer first session just eats all of their brains. Gone.
I mean, one thing you can do is you can play Let's Find the Metagamer and have an NPC warn the players, don't go down that passageway. Go down this one instead. Down that passageway is a beholder. If fucking anyone goes down that passageway, throw a beholder at them and then say, what the hell were you expecting?
Yeah. But yeah, basically, choose your plot hooks, just don't think too sternly about it. After all, they're only there for the first session, essentially. The rest carries itself, generally.
Yeah. Like how...
I can give an example of a recent plot hook that I've been using for my main campaign, the unit, which I do stream. Basically, my players started off the new season, quote-unquote, of this, the game, waking up from a shared dream, a prophetic dream, if you will. It's honestly vague enough to give them a bit of a clue of what to search for, but they're gonna have to do the searching themselves. It directly involved them into finding out about the world and whatever the dream might have been about.
I think the unit is actually a very good example of D&D stuff, which, by the way, you can find a link to Marcy's Twitch channel in the description down below.
Yes, that would be twitch.tv/ShayraJester.
And you can use discount code /basement.
No, don't.
No, he has too much money. But it's a good example because you've got every type of player there who can't be described as that guy, except for me.
Even then, you're not a bad that guy.
No, so we've got a character that's entirely mechanics focused. Like, anytime something comes up, this player will talk about the potential of how that could benefit them on a purely mechanical level, which is technically min-maxing, but it's also not min-maxing.
Yeah, he's tasteful about it, at least.
Yeah, it's what the character would do, because they're an engineer, they're trying to figure out things. We've also got a character that's spiritual and believes that life will give you a path, which is the plot, as I'm calling it.
Yeah, we
Destiny...
basically have a plot monkey.
Or he is a monk. So he's halfway there. Then we've got a character who's sort of an enigma, who doesn't show much personality, which you could... I will say, since you're all probably listening, your characters are fine. But then there's me, being an asshole in the corner, who's got a heavily homebrewed class with way too much DM leniency, doing shit I should not be allowed to do.
But he allows for very interesting character development to happen. He is the out there one that just drives everybody around him a lot.
I will say, I did, for like the intention of like 2 sessions, replace that character in the plot and be like, okay, so we're just going to take him out now, he's going to come right back. It ended up being a bit longer, but the amount of fucking times I was contacted to bring that character back immediately was, shall we say, overwhelming.
Yeah, it was honestly quite surprising, because the new character also proved to be rather interesting.
He was an interesting
Just
character.
not what the party called for, perhaps. Oops, sorry, my headset just fell off.
He was
Maybe
an
cut this out.
interesting, useful character. He had a lot of benefit to the party, but he was
Yeah.
also a bit of a dick. But then the party is full of dicks, apparently.
Other story. Other story.
Yes, but enough of me ranting about that. Like, the point that we're trying to make is, like, you can pull any type of player in with a very simple plot hook. Like, you wake up and you have a prophetic dream. Like, alright. Like, I've been getting plot hooks recently from my dreams in actual life. But like, man, that was a weird fucking dream. That'd make a great D&D campaign. So then I write it down.
Yeah. Like, there's all sorts of ways to start off. Personal favorite of mine, honestly, just tends to be start off at a rather inconspicuous location that reveals to be a little bit more than what you might think it is.
Yep. Perfect thing. Actually, if anyone here happens to follow any D&D shows, so Critical Role, The Adventure Zone, or Thrilling Intent, I would highly recommend all of them, actually. Then you can sort of see shards of how to make plot hooks. Like, it's a bit harder if you start watching Critical Role early on, as I recently have, because that's a party of 9th level characters that have existed since Pathfinder, and they're just being brought over, and now they're being translated into a story. But at the beginning of that, the plot hook is you've been given a quest by a person who works at a church to go and find their friend. Their friend is here, and go. And that's all it needs. You just build the parts of the world that you need to exist at that time. And the plot will generally advance, because if you're the sort of player who's saying, oh, okay, so very obviously the plot is saying we need to go to the forest. In that case, I propose to everyone that we go to the mountains and fight a storm giant. Then they're an idiot. It's like having a player who's very obviously chaotic evil in a party of lawful good characters. Like, after some point, there's no reason the characters wouldn't just say, let's kill him.
Yeah.
Like,
it's the same as a character that I'm currently actually playing, who got plot hooked in an interesting method, I suppose. Basically, my character would be a cleric of Ilmater, and she is of a higher standing than regular clerics, basically. Imagine a church hierarchy alongside a kingdom-ish hierarchy combined. And she is one of the only lawful good characters. I think she is the only lawful character in the entire campaign.
That she is.
Yeah, so she makes for an interesting dilemma there. And the way she got plot hooked into this is simply, hey, she found someone of the party stealing and discovered there's a body there. Well, that sounds like an investigation thing that the church might care about.
Like, one thing I would recommend is, if you can't think of a general plot hook, then just give your party reasons to work together. Like, it'll have to be very character specific, so it's like, okay, so who have we got in our party? We've got a lawful good paladin who works for the king and has been sent on a quest to as a foreign dignitary. Great. We've got a chaotic neutral monk who wants to understand the will of the world, and we've got a I don't know, lawful evil rogue who wants to earn money so that he can pay the bill for his wife's sickness. Like, these are all perfectly fine things, but, you need to then give them all reasons to work together. Like, so, take that rogue and say, alright, so, what happened is you wanted to earn some money. However, you were unfortunately caught. You can decide for yourself how you were caught. I won't bog you down, and I'll let you decide if it was a particularly glorious endeavor or you were just captured like an idiot. And you have been brought to the king, and you've been sentenced to a life of slavehood underneath this paladin. You work for this.
Let's not do slavehood under a paladin.
Look, both work.
Servitude is not quite the same, of course.
Yeah. And then the monk has no fucking reason to want to work with them. However, because it's a player character, they're obviously going to bump into the rest of the party. So you could leave that down to the players and just say, well, why don't you join us? You will experience the world in a much better light if you were on a quest with us than if you were to go alone. Just as a random example, because generally your players want to play together. It's shocking, really.
Oh yeah, although make your plot hook generalistic enough to draw in all sorts of players. I've had the displeasure of DMing a campaign wherein the party was, well, extremely and wildly different in their aspirations and goals. Only one or two might have just lined up with each other. The others were just tagging along with one another just because they wanted to play, not necessarily because they felt like their characters would follow along.
There's going to be an entire fucking episode dedicated to that group, isn't there?
It shall be a multi-parter, I fear.
It's good. 1 hour isn't enough. That'll be an extra long bonus episode for you guys.
Yeah.
We've had bad groups. I will say, my entire time I've been playing with Marcy. Marcy has been in literally every D&D game I've ever played.
Yeah, pretty much.
Every story I have in D&D, Marcy's involved with in some way.
Yay! Because we both got into it basically around the same time.
Yeah. Just one day Marcy's like, hey guys, I'm gonna go and play D&D with my friends in a few days. I was like, can I join you? I want to play D&D. Because I'm a nerd and I wanted to live up to that stereotype. 2 years later.
Making a D&D podcast. Yeah, that sounds about right, actually.
You sound so resigned.
No, I'm not resigned. Oh, sorry.
But yeah, there's another way that you can build your plot hook is around your villain. That's something that I did once. I built a campaign, and I didn't know who the villain was going to be, so I set up a very late game villain who was going to be a plot twist, and because the campaign ended up getting abandoned, never got revealed. We had, and I was just like, right, there's a thing over here, go and fight it. I was just reading through the monster manual to get inspiration, because the monster manual is an insanely good source of inspiration if you ever need it. You can flip to pretty much any page, there's a monster there, and you can read about it, and they will have a reason to want to interact with your party. So you can just do that.
Certain mobs even come with actual plot hooks written out for them.
For example, you could be indebted to a bronze dragon who helped fight alongside you and your country in a war, and now you must repay them because your country doesn't actually have the resources you promised. So you must now basically work as a guinea pig for this dragon. I'm going to write that down, excuse me. But indebtitude is also a tad generic, but it works very well.
It's one of the lesser generic ones, actually. I've not seen it used all that often until later plot points or hooks. Hey, you did that thing.
You and I have been pulled by indebtitude 4 times.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm. But of course, that's beside the point. Indebtitude works because, then you've instantly got a quest giver someone who wants to make your party stronger has a personal investment in the story, and instantly the party has a reason to connect with them. Whether it's positively or negatively, that'll depend.
Yeah, so here's a fun little thing. I decided to go to the master manual and just type in random number.
What did you get?
I got the doppelganger, which is a wonderful plot hook to throw into anything. People have been acting rather differently in town as of late. Do you know why? Do you care to find out? That sort of shit. Figured that would be fun. But yeah, even with enemies, you can call in ineptitude for like making them work together at one point or another.
Yeah.
That's why you spare certain villains, guys. Don't kill them all.
Speaking of, if your party ever lets a villain live, even if it's just like some insignificant bandit, bring that fucker back later. You always, like, never waste a perfectly good villain. Like, a street thug can come back, not necessarily as someone who wants to fight the party even, just as like an example of reformed society. Like,
yeah.
Your party defeated this bandit, but you let him live because he's only a 14-year-old kid, and he's just trying to survive when his parents died. And then a few weeks later, he's actually managed to get a job, and he's doing well now. Like, players will be like, oh, that's nice. It's a nice little touch. You don't have to include it.
Yeah.
But then you can have a little conversation with them. You can be forced to come up with every detail about their life, which is why you come up with every detail about their life.
Yeah. Ah, goodness. DMing can be fun, but in that sort of situations, you're gonna wish that you had some random character generator.
DMing is 70% improv. Like...
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a matter of how long does it take you to think of something, which I think I've proven at this point already in just this podcast alone. I'm decently good at.
Yeah, I'd like to agree.
Like, I have a bit of a weird problem when it comes to DMing, which is I'll sometimes just fall back on demons and devils as, like, something to fight. It's like, oh, I'm pressured for a plot hook. Devils are invading the world, and then everyone ignores it because it means nothing.
And then my character comes in the mighty campaign comes along, and devils are probably gonna be a companion in the long run.
Yeah,
I say probably. Right. They're absolutely gonna be a fucking companion in the long run.
Yeah, like,
honestly, alliances can make for incredible plot hooks as well. Factions work very well, especially if they're the same faction as everybody else's. That's basically why the unit works so well. They're already colleagues of one another.
Yeah, they're workmates. They're not an adventuring party. They are a company who need to earn their money.
Yeah, so they go out and investigate weird-ass cultist bullshit, for example.
Like, the example I was giving earlier, of, like, how you can make a villain a plot hook. It's just, you just look through the monster manual, you find something around, like, oh, I like that. Then you come back with it, and you say, alright, so, here's this villain. You need to go and fight them, but they can't fight them yet. The party is not strong enough to fight them. And yeah, it's a bit of an RPG trope to have a forced fight that you instantly lose, but, you know, in D&D, that's very rarely done. I mean, don't kill your entire party, just one or two of them. Just
or incapacitate them.
Yeah, and then throw them off a cliff, killing them. Leave an actual effect on your party.
Knock someone out and dump them in the water.
Yeah, like, your party will... Your party is not used to losing. That's the thing. Your party will never be used to losing a fight. Every fight they go up against, they have got the ability to win. So then when you give them one they can't win, a lot of players don't actually know how to react. which I love,
Yeah.
and it's very fun to make your players squirm. But
Like,
if you're
oh no, my favorite character is unconscious. Oh
and there's an orc stepping up to him slowly and menacingly with a saw blade. Where did he get a saw?
no. Yeah. Basically, you can vary things a lot. Combat encounter for a plot hook can always drive a good revenge plot very strongly.
Yeah, like if
Uh,
ever you're struggling to think of a good plot hook, like you you can always steal a little bit from other media. You can steal a little. You can do a little bit of stealing, not a lot, but a little bit.
That actually reminds me of a quote that I once heard. The DM is only as good as the obscurity of the material he steals from.
See, the thing is, I know that's true because the character who I made to supplement my existing one in the unit, I stole his backstory from an anime that no one else there has seen. It's not an obscure anime, it's Hunter x fucking Hunter, but no one else had seen it, so I was able to just steal the Oreo's backstory. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
that's all I did.
works. I
No one
haven't seen
noticed.
it, so I didn't know that.
Yep, that's my confession.
Well, I'm glad that you're being honest with me, Matthew.
I'm being honest to the internet. Besides, that character's already been
by the
removed.
way. No,
Oh, man. He's already been removed from the campaign, so I care so much. To be honest, if he died, that would just round out his story perfectly.
Yeah, it would come full circle and Hugo would be sad.
He'd be very sad. That's actually a thing, by the way. Word of advice to players: don't be afraid to let your character's story end. Like,
Yeah.
the story has to end eventually, and not every story has to involve you as the main character.
Mm.
Like, you can very happily make a character. Like, I've got, I think, 4 different characters at this point whose stories have ended with them becoming incredibly depressed and realizing that adventuring is not something they can really do.
Oh man, the most grievous one is still Captain Blythe Braxton.
That's Captain Blythe Braxton to you.
That's what I said. I can't do the accent. You know I can't.
You say Captain, not Captain. I say that, but he was like 16. He didn't have that accent. Like, see, the thing is, having a character become just overwhelmed and thinking they're way better than they are, that's actually fine as a character arc. Just realizing.
Yeah.
Like, I had my first monk character, who I mentioned earlier, his story was summed up in that entire session. He thought himself like to be some great hero who was going to save the world. He was to be the next legendary adventurer. And then he lost his leg. And then he died of an infection. That's a perfectly fine story to have on its own. Because D&D can be harsh.
He was kind of sad.
There was a lot of sad things about that campaign.
Campaign? Barely campaign, honestly. But yeah, that's the one where we woke up in a prison, by the way. His character being a goody two-shoes variety. Yeah.
I mean,
do make your plot hooks fit the characters, please.
Yes. Don't do it by majority vote, because then that screws someone over. It has to be, like, everyone needs to be fit. It's why I recommend every time I'm making a new campaign, okay, guys, make your characters together so they've got a reason to work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't make them at each other's throats. Like, that just makes it hell to make you all fucking play together. And across the time we've been recording this podcast, I've realized something. The series Thrilling a 10 has every generic starting trope for a D&D campaign. It is set in a small village. There are people who have rat problems. There is a monster on the outskirts of town that the party must destroy. However, one of the party members has been cited to go and kill the monster. He'll need support. So he goes to the local prison cell to help an adventurer get out so that they can go and fight the monster. What do they do next? They go to a bar so that they can get another person to help their fucking adventure.
Yeah, that entire first episode is just all
It's tropes.
sorts of tropes. That
Like,
entire
that's-
series is tropey as shit, though.
I mean, that's the thing I love about Meatshire as a thing in Thrilling Intent. It is built on every trope. That's the point of it. It's a trope and it's a shithole. Nobody likes Meatshire because it's so generic and boring. It's like, it's just incompetent people who go there are the ones who are done by it. Which, you know, is a bit of a slight, but, like, everyone starts somewhere. Like, fucking, the strongest person in that party genuinely believes Meatshire was a good place.
Oh god, yeah. But even then, they have plot hooks later on in the story. Like they are basically forced to do a thing, and they make their own plot hook, aka when they were enslaved and
You've been
exactly knew how to deslave them.
You've been sold into slavery. What do you do? Break out of slavery. Okay. That's
Yeah.
fine. Like, that's a perfectly solid plot hook. What do you do next? Oh, we die. We just die, and then come back to fight a god of death.
And
Alright.
then start a company.
Then we start our own bar, and we start our own adventures from our fucking bar. It's genuinely, I recommend Thrilling Intent to all of you. It's great.
Maybe start with Wizard High School.
You can start with the first episode. You just have to be willing to accept that the audio issues aren't gonna stay there.
Around.
It's not perfect, but you know, I feel like sometimes I'm the only person who enjoys the early parts of that. But
I like
do.
the early parts, but Wizard High School is just a good point to start.
Yeah, the thing is, moving away from Thrilling Intent as a topic, it's easy to fall into the tropes of just stealing ideas from other people. Like, I could very easily steal Thrilling Intent's plot hooks, give it to my own campaign, and people will be like, wow, this is a really good campaign, because I haven't seen Thrilling Intent. It wouldn't kill me as a DM, but I could do that. Like, the general key to a good plot hook is it just makes your players want to play. And even then your players want to play anyway, it's why they're there, and if they don't want to play, then they're not going to play.
It's honestly not so much of a balancing act than you would imagine when you're starting out.
Yeah, it can be something really simple. It can
Also,
literally...
don't make the MacGuffin plot hook. That one is actually just boring.
Yeah, if ever you say to your party, you are the chosen ones, then that is the point when you need to stop being a DM and never continue. It's...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course, but,
yeah.
you know, it's the most generic, boring plotline. And worst of all, it gives your party... It gives them plot armor. It says, like, okay, anything you do is now fine and perfectly justified because you are the chosen ones who will save the world. Like,
yeah.
I might be starting a campaign soon, and I'm going to do that plotline, except I'm going to say, you are the chosen one to save the world. What from? Whatever comes up, and then nothing comes up.
Yeah, or, here's a good one. This one I personally do suggest. You're not the chosen ones. Instead, you've been cursed quite thoroughly. In some way or another, you're gonna bring catastrophe to this world. See if you can avoid making that happen. I'm
It's
gonna
like,
write that down. Hang on.
Yeah, it's like, there's an old joke I saw, where it's like, what if there was an anime about a girl who was born with pink hair, and the entire anime is about her trying to avoid anime tropes so she doesn't be in an anime? Like, who wants to be class president? Not me. hey, would you mind showing the new kid around? No. Like, it's a perfectly
Yeah.
serviceable thing. Like, just give a middle finger to tropes if you want to, but at the same time, don't be afraid of them. Like, the tropes are there for a reason.
Tropes are tropes for a reason.
Like,
It's because they work.
Like, you just have to understand when it's appropriate to use a trope. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like,
let's start with the prison one then.
Okay, so
Let's
if you're gonna,
dissect it.
yeah. So the point of the prison trope is that immediately gives your party a reason to go out and prove something, either their innocence or exactly why they shouldn't have let you go, depending on whether the party's good or evil. For the sake of this, we'll assume the party's all lawful good to goody two shoes, because fuck it. We'll
Why
just
not?
pretend that for the time being. So the party's all lawful good. They've been falsely imprisoned. Why have they been falsely imprisoned? Well, that gives a villain motivation, and it gives the party reason to go after the villain. It then sets up them immediately disliking the villain. Great! They've got a reason to go and fight the final boss immediately. 10 seconds in, and they have all the things they need to make an entire campaign.
Yeah, basically, tropes can be played out perfectly, but you need to know why they work. Dig into that.
Yeah. Like, it's... The thing is, like, then your party will either say, oh, I shouldn't be here, I am a lawful good paladin of the king. It's like, ah, yes, but you were the one who incited the revolution, or whatever. Like, I mean, hell, you can, without your players even realizing, use the plot of Star Wars. You can genuinely do that, and most players won't notice, because all you have to do is just say, so you began your life as a small group of farmers. However, one day, you received a message from a princess who has been kidnapped by an evil empire. No, don't use the word empire.
Zelda?
That's too recognizable. That's too recognizable. Organization of evil men who want nothing more than to destroy the world and keep everyone in their clutches. So you find a magical sword left to you by your father. Like, it's really easy to rip off Star Wars, and I encourage
that intro did sound a lot like Zelda too.
Yeah, because Zelda rips off Star Wars.
The things people can get away with if they have a lot of money.
Well, like, Star Wars is a really generic D&D story when you look at it.
Yeah, it's literally the hero's journey.
Yeah.
There's literally a call to action and everything.
It's like, alright, so what happens? Well, your uncle's farm was burnt down. Oh, not my Uncle Ben! Who would have guessed that an uncle called Ben would die? Having your uncle called Ben is the number one way to ensure they die, which makes me really worried about Rice. That was a terrible joke. I thank you for laughing at it, but you shouldn't have.
I don't get it anyway. I just laugh because it sounds funny.
There's a brand of rice called Uncle Ben's. That's all it is.
Oh.
Funny enough, Andrew Garfield, the last guy to play Spider-Man, his uncle is called Ben.
No.
Like, in real life. That's an actual thing.
Oh my fucking god. He's just made for the role.
Mm-hmm. Too bad the movie was shit. But, like, what was I saying before that? Like, yeah. It's just, you have gained a magical sword. A sword of light and holy energy of a bygone age when good could hold over the world, but darkness now prevails. There's even the light side and the dark side. Like, replace the Force with magic and the Millennium Falcon with a horse, and you're done.
Yeah. Or Pegasus, probably.
No, fuck it. Replace space with the ocean and name the Millennium Falcon a boat.
That's actually kind of a, yeah, okay, I can see that working. Also, casual side note, don't always make your plots good versus evil.
Yeah, like I'm making a campaign now. It's Cyberpunk, and I've forbidden my players from being chaotic evil or lawful good because
Yeah.
they're supposed to be terrorists. So having a moral gray area, that's beautiful. Because, like, well, the government is ruling people well. It's doing a very good job. Like, poverty's down. There's a lower rate of homelessness. People feel more free, but like it's a biased government, like as a shadow government that's holding everyone. Just but
Yeah.
like the players can then still say, "Well, I'm not happy with this," and that's why they decide to fight against the government.
Yeah. That's one of the options that you could go for.
I mean, those players could then randomly decide, "No, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to have Sorry, there's someone hitting your mic, Marcy.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Is it? They could just decide, "Oh, we're gonna have fucking like we're just gonna take up day jobs. Fuck it. We're gonna work in an office. We're gonna sell paper. That's all we're gonna do. Make brand deals
For
for
10
paper."
years.
Yep.
Dudley Mifflin.
And then the super soldier mystic takes up a job in teaching. Like,
Because she's super fucking clever. That's kind of her idea.
yeah, except for the amnesia. Uh,
Spoilers.
oh, fuck it. All this will be streamed when it eventually happens on twitch.tv/CheraJester.
Hashtag
Again,
promo.
description. Hashtag spawn. Hashtag ad.
I'm not paying you.
You should be. I'm where your fucking money comes from.
Uh,
Look, people don't come to the unit to see the DM. They come to see Umbra. Anyway, getting off topic. Actually, we've been off topic for the past 45 minutes. But like, sort of round it out. Just like make your plot hook simple. They don't need to be the beginning of a grand tale spanning across several eras. Like,
I mean, the plot hook of Skyrim is pretty big, and you'll underwhelm your players if you go for something that big, because you're not gonna keep up that momentum. That's not gonna work out. Always start from humble beginnings and build up from there.
I mean, even then, the plot of Skyrim is still like really basic when you get down to it. It's like you were a prisoner. You were caught trying to trespass into the border. Great. What happens now? Dragons have come back. Wait, what? Yeah, go and fight dragons. Also, you're the chosen one. It's very. Basically, fuck Skyrim.
Also, fuck Divinity, the original sin.
Yeah, one, not two. The first one is a terrible story.
Yeah.
Like, don't trust RPGs as plot hooks, but if you think it'll work, like, for all the shit that we can talk about Final Fantasy II, the plot hook of Final Fantasy II is your village has been destroyed, one of your friends has gone missing, and you have just been nearly killed. Go. Like, fuck. That's a fucking plot hook and a half.
Yeah, it's a good plot hook. Immediately sends you on, once again, a vendetta plot.
Well, then immediately it's like, it's set up a mystery, a vendetta, a reason to dislike the villain, and something to feel sad about. Like, is our friend alive and missing or dead? Like, we don't know. Like, also, if your party has the goal to say that they've got relatives in a foreign land, bring those relatives over and murder them. Like, honest to God, just torture your players' characters. Not your players, just the characters.
Oh yeah, I've subtly done that, but I think, at one point or another, when things get back to the status quo, things have been changed a lot as well in the unit.
Mm.
Should be fun. So yeah, how long have you been going for?
Uh, a, a little under an hour. I forgot to write down the time we started.
Yeah, let's say we've about done an hour. I think this is a good time to end it off.
Yeah, we're starting to run out of things to say about plot hooks anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
with that, please, if you would love to leave a comment, a like, and share this with your D&D friends, don't be afraid.
It
It'll
would
help
help
us
us
out.
out a
Yeah,
lot.
it would help me out a lot, it would help Marcy out a lot, and then we can bring you more help and complain about our past with D&D.
Yay.
And
Because
complain.
let's be real,
Yeah.
fucking 50% of the anecdotes that every D&D player will have is gonna be some shitty situation that has happened to them multiple times over.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about plot hooks? Leave a comment down below. What do you think could be done? Why don't you start that conversation with your friends after showing them this podcast? But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. But in the meantime, we'll just be rolling with it. Peace.
See ya.
I do like that as a
And
fucking
that's that.
outro.
We'll just be rolling with it. I love it. Get that fucking roll credits.
Mm-hmm.